It starts as a whisper, so quiet you almost ignore it, just a passing thought drifting through your mind. What if none of this is real? Not the ground beneath you, not the voice inside your head, not even the person you think you are. And at first, it feels like a harmless little game, something philosophical you entertain for a moment before moving on. But this time, it doesn't leave. It lingers, it grows, and before you even notice it, something begins to shift. Like the ground under your certainty is slowly cracking. Because if none of this is real, then what have you actually been holding on to your entire life? And here's the strange part. Once that question settles in, it doesn't stay quiet for long. Imagine waking up tomorrow and everything feels just slightly off.
Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, but enough to make you pause. Colors seem too sharp, like someone turned up the intensity. Conversations feel a little too perfect, almost scripted, like people are following cues you can't see. And when you look at your reflection, there's a brief moment, just a flicker, where it doesn't fully feel like you. Have you ever felt that? That tiny disconnect? That subtle feeling that reality is more like a stage than a place? Most people brush it off instantly. But what if you didn't? What if you leaned into it instead? Because this is where it gets interesting. Your mind immediately tries to protect you. It throws logic at the problem. Of course this is real. You can see it, touch it, hear it. That's proof, right? But then another question slips in. Quieter, more dangerous. How do you know your senses are telling you the truth? Because everything you experience is filtered through your brain. It takes raw signals and turns them into what you call reality. But if that interpreter is flawed, or worse, if it can be manipulated, then what are you actually experiencing? Suddenly, reality doesn't feel solid anymore. It feels like a story being told to you in real time. And what most people don't realize is, once you start questioning reality, it doesn't stop with the world around you. It turns inward. Who are you really? Not your name, not your memories, not your roles, but you at the core. Because if your experiences can't be fully trusted, then your identity starts to feel unstable too. Are you the same person you were 5 years ago? Or are you just a constantly updating narrative, rewritten moment by moment? And if nothing is truly real, then even the idea of a fixed you begins to dissolve. But here's the unexpected twist. Instead of panic, something else starts to creep in. A strange sense of freedom. Because if reality isn't as fixed as you thought, then maybe the rules you've been living by aren't either. The fears that hold you back, the expectations that define you, the limits you place on yourself? What if they're all part of the same illusion? What if the only thing keeping them in place is your belief in them? And still, your mind resists going too far. It pulls you back with a heavier question. If nothing is real, then does anything even matter? And that question hits differently, because it threatens meaning itself. Why try? Why care? Why connect if everything is just an illusion? For a moment, it feels like standing at the edge of something endless and empty. And this is where most people stop. They step back. They decide reality must be real enough, because the alternative feels too unsettling. But what if the conclusion isn't what you expect? What if realizing nothing is real doesn't take meaning away, but gives it a new kind of meaning? Think about a dream. When you're inside it, everything feels real. The emotions are real, the stakes feel real. But when you wake up, you realize it was all constructed. And yet, it didn't feel meaningless while you were in it. If anything, it was intense, immersive, unforgettable. Now, imagine applying that idea here. If reality is something being constructed,
whether by your mind or something beyond your understanding, your experience of it still matters. The feelings, the choices, the connections, they still happen. They still shape what you perceive. So maybe the real question isn't, is this real? But what can you do within it? And this is where the perspective shifts again. Because instead of searching for certainty, you start exploring possibility. It's like realizing you're inside a game. At first, it breaks the illusion, but then it opens something new. You begin to notice options you never saw before. You question rules you once followed without thinking. You experiment. You explore. You realize the boundaries you believed were fixed might actually be flexible. But even then, one question lingers quietly in the background. If this isn't real, why does it feel so convincing? Why does pain hurt so much? Why does loss feel heavy? Why do moments of joy feel so powerful? Illusion or not, the experience carries weight. And maybe that's the point.
Maybe realness isn't about whether something exists absolutely, but about how deeply it is felt. And now you're left with a paradox. Nothing is real, and yet everything feels real. You are both the observer and the participant, the one questioning the system and the one living inside it. And the more you try to define it, the more it slips away. And in the end, there's no clean answer waiting for you, no final truth wrapped in certainty. Instead, you're left with something far more powerful and far more unsettling: responsibility. Because if reality isn't fixed, if meaning isn't predetermined, then it's up to you to decide what matters, how to act,
how to feel, how to interpret this experience unfolding right now. And maybe that's the real twist. Not that nothing is real, but that you've been waiting for reality to define itself, when all along, it's been waiting for you to define it instead.